Let's return now to this big breaking news coming through that Israel's cabinet has approved that hostage deal with Hamas. As we've been reporting, it is expected that this will see a ceasefire of several days, with groups of around 10 to 12 hostages being released over a 4 to 5 day period. Let's bring in now former Ambassador to Israel and former Liberal MP Dave Sharma. Dave, thank you for giving us your time again. We spoke to you a bit earlier today when there was a lot of speculation about how this would play out inside the cabinet. We've seen these reports coming through now that cabinet has ticked off on this deal. What is your understanding of how this will now play out over the next few days?
Well, so my understanding is, Ash, that there's 53 Israeli hostages to be released, amongst them 30 children, I think about 12 mothers and a number of other women as well. So it's women and children, people who should never have been taken hostage, and the taking of which as hostages is incidentally a very clear war crime. They will be exchanged for about 150 Palestinian women and children who are currently in Israeli jails, having been convicted of offences there. And this swap, I think, will be facilitated through the Red Cross, which still has a presence in Gaza. And there will be looks like a 5-day cessation of hostilities to allow this swap of people to take place.
We know, Dave, that these negotiations have been incredibly complex and have taken a long time to get to in terms of a final deal being reached. With your background as a former ambassador, you know the diplomacy world a lot better than most. What is your sense in terms of how this deal was actually reached in the end, how it finally got over the line?
Well, look, Qatar has been the key to this because Qatar has been the mediator. Qatar hosts Hamas's political leadership, and Israel has been communicating with Qatar to negotiate this. It's obviously taken a lot longer than was anticipated. I mean, these hostages have been held now for 46 days in Israel, and none of us are clear, including Israel, and what sort of state they might be in. And part of the initial assessment will obviously be to check their health and their status. But it's been a complicated deal because obviously Hamas has wanted things in return. Hamas has also wanted a cessation of hostilities, which they will use undoubtedly to re-prepare themselves militarily and move things around. But for Israel, the hostages are a very emotive, as you can understand, political issue, because the families of the hostages in Israel have been clamouring for the government to help with their release, and it's a very potent political issue because Israel, values human life very highly. So it's been a complicated deal. I would hope that there will be more. I would hope that more of the hostages could be released. There's also a large number of foreigners being held hostage by Hamas. There's about 25 Thai citizens, for instance. Those are subject to separate negotiations, which are underway with those countries through Qatar again and with Hamas.
Dave, we do just have the very latest coming through from CNN. CNN reporter John Lieberman has more from Tel Aviv. Let's just get the very latest.
Just got the first official statement from the government confirming the deal has been approved, and also confirming many of the details we've reported about the deal throughout the course of the day. So let me read this to you. This is not the official translation, but I'll translate it from the Hebrew. It says the government of Israel is committed to the release and return of all of the hostages home. Tonight, the government approved the first stage of the deal for that to that effect, according to which 50 hostages will be freed, women and children, over a 4-day period, and that will lead to a pause in the fighting. The pause will continue every day in which 10 more hostages are released, and then it goes on to say that the government of Israel, the Israeli military, is committed to continuing the war, to continuing to free the hostages, and to continue in its mission to destroy Hamas and ensure the safety of Israel. So we'll get an official translation of that shortly from the government, but an important first statement here acknowledging that the deal itself has been approved. A government source said it was approved by a significant majority a short time ago, following what was a very lengthy cabinet meeting. But this was the expectation all along here, although there were few dissenting voices. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has led this effectively over the finish line, and now it's just a question of how soon those hostages are released.
So that statement there stressing, as Netanyahu did earlier, that the ceasefire does not mean an end to the Israeli campaign in Gaza. This is a pause. Dave, we don't have information about how ministers voted. It wasn't expected that it would be a unanimous vote. We know there are far-right representatives who are expected to vote against the plan. But in terms of public support in Israel, would you expect that this will be a popular move?
Yeah, I would expect that your public support in Israel would be overwhelmingly in favour of this. Look, Israel has conducted prisoner swaps and transfers in the past. Famously, in 2011, they released 1,000 or somewhere north of 1,000 Palestinian prisoners for one captured Israeli soldier, Gilad Shalit. So the public is accustomed to these sorts of deals. Yes, there were parts of Netanyahu's governing coalition from the far right, quite ultra-nationalist parties who were opposed to this, but the security services, the Israeli Defence Force and the senior cabinet ministers within the war cabinet were all strongly in favour of it, and that is why it has passed.
Dave Sharma, always appreciate your contribution. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Ash.